The Bronx Zoo apologizes for imprisoning African man back in 1906. Stay with us, and we're going to talk about it.
The top dog, I know these niggas all want my position, cause I'm putting up numbers like a statistician. The king back like LeBron when he returned to Cleveland. Time to spread the bag around, make sure we all eating. Heard some niggas think they got us, guess we all even.
So the Bronx Zoo is saying we recognize that overt and systematic racism persists, and our institution must play a greater role to confront it. I got this from Baller Alert. Oda Benga was a Central African man who was enslaved and put on display in Zoo Monkey's house with an orangutan. Now, more than 100 years later, the zoo has finally spoken out about its blatant racism. Clearly, the Wildlife Conservation Society, the organization that runs that zoo, issued a formal apology for imprisoning and caging Benga for a week, TMZ reports. We deeply regret that many people and generations have been hurt by these actions or by our failure previously to publicly condemn and denounce them, said the zoo in its apology. We recognize that overt and systematic racism persists, and our institution must play a greater role to confront it. Benga belonged to the Mbuti people, who are the ancestors of the present-day Democratic Republic of Congo. The week of September 8, 1906, Benga was encaged like an animal for several days during the week. He was forced to live in inhumane conditions, forced to live with an ape, and was allowed to a short period of time to go outside. Benga was only released after an outcry from a delegation of local black churches who demanded his freedom. Afterward, he was taken in by Reverend James Gordon, who housed him in his orphanage. Unfortunately, he committed suicide 10 years later. No shocker. Severe trauma. The zoo has since condemned its two founders and is making all of its records about Benga available to the public. Black people try to find peace today in any way you can, is how they signed off the article. Now, to me, this man had taken his life, I would say. That's traumatic. I mean, it's a week, but a lot can happen in a week living with an orangutan in a zoo. First of all, let's get into this. I don't even really like the zoo. And the reason being, I don't like the zoo and I don't like circuses, because I think it's absolutely crazy to lock up anything that lives and breathes and eats and takes a shit for people's amusement. I think that is totally sick and totally demented. However, we patronize these things without thinking twice about them and take our kids to see this madness too. And the thing about it is, when you know better, you do better. I mean, my dad tries to take my kids to the zoo every year. The zoo is just not something I take delight in. It's very hot. A lot of times you're going in the summertime, it's very hot, and them animals don't even want to come out because they're over it. And then here you go and put a man, a black man in there for other people's amusement. That is totally sick. Matter of fact, I think this place needs to, well, it's called the Bronx Zoo. We're talking about the zoo, so they're not necessarily going to change their name, but they need to find a way to dissociate themselves from this mess, because that's terrible. Can you imagine the mind frame that this young man was in? And it took him 10 years, but 10 years of suppressed trauma like that, it's no telling how you would react to it. So it is disgusting to cage up animals, let alone a human being. And of course it was a black man. I mean, we're always getting caged up. They've been wanting us in cages since forever. Now, listen, one thing about it, I do want to say I'm definitely on the mission of love and life and involvement and enlightenment. So I don't like to concentrate on a lot of negativity, but we cannot ignore what is right in front of us. Now, if you were paying attention, you would notice that he was free because the black churches demanded for his freedom. And that is another message. We have to continue to demand for what we want in our rights and stop feeling like we should just be giving them, because they don't give a damn. They don't give a damn about us. They have a system in place that they want to keep in place. And first is business, and it's financial. It's their livelihood over even anything else. Then it becomes racism. Then it becomes them picking on us. But we have so much, and we're so mystical and magical, and we don't even tap into that stuff. And we should be outraged and be in our feelings, but more so we should be taking action, because you get stuff done. It seems like a lot of stuff has kind of quieted down. We were really on it when it came to the whole thing after George Floyd, because how many times have we seen black men being murdered at the hands of police officers, right? And then after that, we were still crying out for Breonna Taylor. But it seems like things have gotten quiet. Now, that doesn't mean that it has. It's probably still people fighting in the background. But we need to make sure that we don't get to the point that we forget. But at any rate, 2020 is doing this thing too, because our ancestors and the Creator, they're not going to allow this stuff for too much longer. And not to mention, the planet must evolve, and so must the people, so things must change, and there's cycles too. So there's a lot of things at play here. But we have to make sure that we're being diligent about one another, because you can't expect someone who does not know your plight, and they're just self-centered and self-serving, and their whole thing, their priority is materialism on this planet and domination. It's not about humanity. We come with a sense of humanity. It's embedded in us, love for human and nature and stuff like that. That's how we roll. This in our DNA. And so we need to continue to be about our vision and put down our differences and work together, because the squeaky oil gets the wheel. And this is disgusting. So leave your thoughts in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you always check me out at Rockyroadmedia.com. That's where you'll get all the announcements about what I'm doing. You'll be able to find me in all social media. I got some new things coming upon the horizon. So make sure you continue to follow me there. Subscribe there. There is a box that should pop up, or it's at the bottom, that will ask you to enter your email and subscribe, so you can keep abreast of what's going on. I love you guys so much for your support. Catch you next time, y'all.